We'll start out by taking a look at the case that we'll be building in later. We have today is the Gamemax Spark Micro ATX computer case. On the back of the box, we can see the different cooling configurations that's available in this case. On the rear of the case, you'll see that there's a 120mm fan that you can use for cooling, or a 120mm AIO that you can use. All these fans are not included with these cases, with this case. And for the top, you could use two 120mm or two 140mm fans, or up to a 240mm AIO on the top. And then on the bottom, you can use up to three 120mm fans or two 140mm fans, and you can use up to 240mm AIO. Personally, I wouldn't use an AIO on the bottom of a case for a computer setup. On the side, we see some of the specifications of this case. Again, it's a micro ATX case, model name is Spark. For the I/O on the case, it has a USB 3.0 and one of those, and then one USB Type-C port, and then HD audio jack. The power supply support that the case allows is up to from 170 to 220mm ATX power supply. The drive bays that has available is 3 2.5 inch and one 3.5 inch, or 4 2.5 inch drives that it can support. And that goes over the cooling options again. For graphics card, it allows up to a 355mm graphics card, but I think that's dependent on the size of your power supply. If you have too large of a power supply, it might not support a longer card up to 355. It might have to be shorter than that. I forgot what the specifications on that was. For a CPU cooler, it supports CPU tower cooler's heights up to 168mm, and it comes with 4 PCI slots, and it has the dimensions of the case and the carton that it comes in. And there's the branding of the case again, Gamemax Spark. This case was $60, and I bought it for that. I think I've seen it as low as $50, so we'll see how good of a value this case is. It doesn't include any fans, so you have to use your own fans, but other than that, we'll take a look and see. So, let's take a look at this case. There's 3 different versions of this case, different color options. There's a black, a white, and a gray. I went with the gray because I wanted to do kind of a black and gray build. It looks like it's all put together here. There's a tempered glass side panel here. This is the front power button, audio, and the USB jacks. And it looks like another tempered glass panel on the back, so you can see how well you cable managed or not. In the back of the case, it's pretty standard. The power supply, I think, actually goes on the front of the case. And then you've got to connect it to the back. And then there's the top. So take a look at a build of this case and what components we'll be using. Next we'll go over the parts that I'll be using in this build. To start out with, I'm using a Intel Core i5 13600K processor. To cool that, I have an iFlow 240 AIO from ID Cooling. I got it on sale for $50. And this one, I found out after I bought it that it doesn't support LGA 1700, but I found a bracket kit on Amazon that ID Cooling sells that allows you to use this AIO with this processor. Then, the motherboard I'll be using on the build is a Gigabyte Aorus B660M Pro AX DDR4 motherboard. And I've got 32 gigabytes of Orion 3200 megahertz DDR4 memory, 2 by 16 gigabytes. For the GPU, I have a Gigabyte RTX 3070 Vision. And for storage, I have a Kingston NV2 1TB PCIe 4.0 M.2 drive. Got a couple NZXT 140mm fans I'll be using that I had left over from another build for the bottom of this case. I'll be using one of these ID Cooling 120mm IRGB fans for the rear of the case. I've also got some custom extension cables from power cables that are black, or actually they're gray. And then the power, I've got a Corsair CX650M semi-modular ATX power supply. So let's get building.
now we'll go over the pros and cons of this case and whether I recommend the case or not. For pros on the case, one of the pros is that it has a good build quality, was high quality materials, and was sturdy, didn't seem flimsy at all. So it seemed like a pretty good quality materials and everything that was used. Another pro for that case was the attractive, clean design. I liked the design of the case and how it looked, and I think it'd go with good with a lot of different builds. And another pro for the case is that there's a decent amount of available airflow as long as you utilize all of the available airflow options, and it should be capable of cooling up to a mid-range build. I wouldn't try to put high-end parts into the case, but it cools pretty well from what I can tell for a micro ATX case. And for my cooling setup, I had the bottom two fans set up as intake to help cool the graphics card, and I also had the rear 120 millimeter fan set up as an intake to help cool the CPU for the AIO on the 240 that's mounted to the top. So that should do a decent job of cooling the components that I had in my build. For cons on the case, one of the cons is that it's lacking in room for cable management behind the motherboard tray. I would have liked to have seen a couple more centimeters or millimeters at least to be able to have some more room for the cables behind the motherboard tray. I was still able to fit everything back there, but it would have been a lot easier to have a little extra room. And for the rest of the cable management, it wasn't too bad, but if you would add additional um, components like SSDs to what I have in my build, that would probably be pretty difficult to cable manage everything because most of the cable management has to be done underneath the power supply in the front of the case, and that would probably start to get a little cramped at that point. Another con of the case is that there's no included fans. I would like to have seen at least a rear fan included, possibly even a couple intakes on the bottom included to, to help increase the value of the case. Um, like I said, I bought the case for $60. I think I've seen it up closer to $78 or more now, but I still think it's a good value. I just have liked to have seen some fans included. Um, and to go along with that, another con is that on the back side of the case, there's an opaque tempered glass side panel. It seems kind of pointless to me that you'd have an opaque tempered glass side panel on the back. I figured you probably could have saved some money in the construction by using different materials for that panel and using that savings to include some fans instead. So, as to whether I recommend the case or not, I guess that would depend on the price. I would recommend it for sure up to $70. Much more than that, it probably wouldn't be as good of a value. Probably could find some other values um, for other builds in other cases. So that's that's my review of this case, the Gamemax Spark. Let me know in the comments what other cases you would like to see a build and review video of. Also, consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. It'd help a lot in continuing to produce more of these videos. Thanks for watching.